We'll get started. I have a few
Sure.
questions, and the first one actually falls under transportation and environment.
hmm
What are your party's plans to improve and invest in our public transit infrastructure, recognizing that we are striving for a reduction in greenhouse
hmm
gas emissions?
Well, one of the things that our party is putting forward, and certainly if we do form government, Tammy, is a public transit system right across the province,
Tip to tip?
tip to tip. Certainly, you look at our rural areas, which West Prince,
Hmm.
whether we're talking Alberton or whether we're talking outside the boundaries of Alberton throughout District 26, we do not have taxis. We do not have a public transit system. The long and the short, we do have to rely
Yeah.
on vehicles for transportation. Um, we do have to travel if whether it's with regard to meetings, whether it's with regard to
Medical?
medical diagnostic
Yes.
services specialists,
Yeah.
we have no other choice but to travel to Charlottetown. And having said that,
It's all about the people, growing rural communities, and commonly heard throughout your campaign.
absolutely,
So
it's our theme.
it's your theme. Do you believe that the choices people make and the attitudes that they have are the catalyst for real community success or failure?
Well, I think that we always have to remember, any elected official has to remember that ultimately that they are responsible to the people that elected them. We look at, I would have to say to some extent here, that we have lost our voice. Like we no longer have a regional health board. We no longer have elected school
That's
boards
right.
and the administration that supported them. And the impact, in my opinion, again, but the impact that that has hit, again, we'll say in healthcare, it is so important for elected officials to be there
We
for the
my
people.
we feel that we've lost do you think business organizations like the West Prince Chamber should have some form of sustained funding to do what we do?
Absolutely.
All right.
And with that, one of the platforms, if you like, your policies that we have put out is a $1 million investment throughout the province of PEI that would be split equally, a third, a third, and a third by county. Um, you look
I like
at
that
the
idea.
chamber, and to be able to continue on, I guess I would have to say, with the great work that you have been doing.
Well, thank you, Ernie. A lot of people are do think we're government funded, and I mean we're not government funded, but with just little extra supports to maybe help support a
hmm
wage position, because the work we do is really relevant in kind of holding our
hmm
government accountable. So, next question is under healthcare, and you're probably hearing lots about
All
that.
kinds,
All
all
kinds.
kinds.
So, what are your thoughts on attracting physicians to a rural community or even to the island? And what changes do you see that need to take place?
Well, I think there's two or three things there, and we had spoke earlier about the feeling, and I am hearing it at the door. I'll be honest, Tammy, but we have lost our voice in certain areas, and certainly healthcare is
Mm-hmm.
one of them. Um, Personally, one of the things that priorities, I guess I would have to say, is getting our voice back with regard to healthcare. Um, Now, whether that is elected boards regionally here with an administrative support for them, I would be very much in favor of that. I think when you do have that regional voice, that it can only enhance the ability to
Oh,
recruit. And the other aspect of that is not only the recruitment but the retention as
that's
well.
right. I agree.
Uh, I would like to see, personally, I would like to see a recruitment position that would be specific for our rural hospitals,
Hmm.
clinics, long-term care facilities. Let's face it, like in this area, the people, you see just the caring that we have
Oh, yeah.
overall, but we do have to create that environment to retain healthcare professionals.
Very good.
Uh,
Last question of the day, unless you have anything else you'd like to share with us on the government regulation, the mixed member proportional.
mhm.
Do you feel that the public has been educated enough on this?
Personally, well, I'll share this right off the bat. I will be voting no. With that, I think that it's imperative, it's extremely important for ones in the public to educate, to know about what what they are voting on and the potential implications that may have for our area.
All right. Question is around people in growing rural communities. Commonly heard throughout campaigning, it's all about the people. And do you believe that the choices that people make and their attitudes that they have are the catalyst for rural community success or failure?
Absolutely. I believe that we need a more holistic approach to both our health and the health of our communities, health of our individuals, health of our communities, and that's all tied into business. Healthier people, healthier communities leads to expanded business opportunities and more success and prosperity for all of us.
Very good. Education, attracting new people, retaining our youth. State-of-the-art building in Alberton, Holland College, underutilized. How could government help identify trade programs and new business technology that would address the skilled labor shortage in our region?
Well, we're lucky on PEI to have retained our apprenticeship program in the high schools, and some provinces have gotten away from that. So we're lucky that we at least have that stepping stone. That could always be expanded. And there's also a provincial apprenticeship program, which offers good benefits for people trying to get into the trades. The Green Party has proposed a microloan program that would help tradespeople, acquire loans of up to $5,000 that they could apply towards tools or training. So that in itself, I think, would be greatly helpful, as people sometimes might see that financial hurdle as.
That's good to know, because it can be very. So that kind of goes into my next question. How do you think government could work with high schools in partnership and collaboration to get island students into the college programs?
Well, certainly greater aid when it comes to student loans, because as a former student myself, graduating with a heavy student loan debt, those first few years are somewhat difficult to crawl out of that financial hole. So greater emphasis on student loans, I think, would make things a little bit easier for students.
Free tuition?
Free tuition. I'm moving in that direction, yes.
So do you think that offering free tuition or subsidized tuition would be an option to retain our youth or even attract international students?
Well, I think it would. I mean, because, for example, we just have to look down south where education is so expensive. And there's some talented people there. Obviously, not all of them can afford to go to school or post-secondary education. So if we get some of those people to come here and retain them to stay here.
Maybe I'll leave you with one more question for the day.
Sure.
And it's up to you if you'd like to share it. Would you like to share any brief thoughts on the MMP or how you will vote or advise the public on how to vote?
I'm in favor of it because our current system, especially now that we're moving into more of a three-party system, I think we're going to see results where some parties will have 25% of the vote and 0 seats, and other parties will have 35% of the vote and all of the seats. And I don't think that's actually fair. However, I think after the Green Party wins the next couple of elections under our current system, the other parties will be begging for MMP, and then they will do a better job of explaining it.
Well, very good. No, thank you for coming in, James. We appreciate it. With our first question, it's under transportation and environment. What are your party's plans to improve and invest in our public transit infrastructure, recognizing that we are striving for a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions?
So I'm not sure if you know, but they just had a big announcement this morning, and they called it the New Green Deal. This was our environment policy that they have put out from the party. And in that plan, there is a plan for a transit system from tip to tip. They want to bring that in as electric or environmentally friendly as possible.
Exciting.
You and I talked about this before, because a lot of the people that I work with don't drive in my day job. My mileage checks make my head office cry every month.
I bet.
There are people, and people always complain, people on social assistance, they should be working. They can't. If you don't drive, you can't work up here. It is so difficult in there. It needs to be subsidized so that people can access it, and it's affordable. I follow that Transportation West van down my road to my work every day. And, you know, if it was affordable and if it was a system that more people could get on that van, it needs to be affordable. And that is part of our plan, is to subsidize and make it affordable for people so that they can use it.
Next question, Michelle, is kind of along those lines. We have the Holland College building in Alberton, which you're familiar with. We have a skilled labor shortage. What kind of programs could we develop? Business technology, but also, in attracting students, housing options are there too. We don't have how to attract international, free tuition. Those are some other things. What do you think of some of those things, or how could we address some of the skilled labor shortage?
Well, first of all, the NDP's platform, part of what they want to push for is free tuition for all Islanders for their first post-secondary, whether it's diploma or whether it's a university degree. That is part of our platform. Housing is another big part of our platform. And we know that there needs to be housing, not just for seniors and not just for families, but for single people.
I like the idea.
And if we have a transit system in place, then young people can stay at home and they can access places like Holland College up in Alberton.
Affordable for all. I love it.
Affordable for all, because if you're young too, you want to be able to be independent, and you want to be able to come and go and not have to ask your parents for things. And if you move to Charlottetown, you can do that because you can take a bus, you can take a taxi, you can walk. Here you can't. And the apartments that are available are so high cost that young people can't afford them, even if they were allowed to rent them. Because let's be honest, the landlords are able to pick and choose because the market is there. And if I was a landlord and I had to choose between 10 people, I'm probably going to choose the nice, quiet senior person who has money and is, I know isn't going to party or anything else. Maybe a young person isn't going to do that, but you're going to go with your safest bet. And if we create more affordable housing, then that's going to change that young people can.
So Michelle, the last question today is on the mixed member proportional MMP, and we've been trying to educate the people along with the candidate interviews to help them kind of decide. We feel that people haven't been educated enough, and I understand you've been doing your research on this.
I definitely have. I am pro MMP, so I will come out and say that right off the bat. I've done a lot of research on it, and I really feel like this is the best system. So I will show you this little graphic, and can I
hold it forward there.
Hold it forward. So if you can see on this side over here, this is how the last election the seats fared out with first past the post. So do you want me to bring it in closer so you can see the percentages there?
So we had 40 and 37, and that's the current system government right now.
And so that was 40.8% of the vote went to the Liberals, the 37.4 went to the PCs, 11% went to the NDP, and 10.8 went to the Green. But how the seats fared out was that we had 1 Green, and then we had 8 PC, and the rest were Liberal. If we would have been under the mixed member proportional, this over here, this side is how the seats would have fared out. So we would have had 3 NDP seats and 3 Green seats, and we would have had 10 PC seats if we would have had mixed member proportional last time. So I was explaining a little bit on how the ballot would actually work, so that if you're in your local riding, so for instance, you are in riding 25. So your candidates right now are Herb Dickinson, Robbie Henderson, Barb Broom, and the Green Party is Jason
Charette.
Jason Charette. So perhaps you were going to vote for Barb Broom on the top. I'm just picking, I don't know what Tammy's voting.
Okay,
from the PCs. So on the top of your ballot, you would pick the candidate who you think you best support in your riding. But on the bottom part, the parties will select their 6 candidates who they think best support their platform across the island, people who they want to see represent.
And those 6 people,
you get to choose one out of those, and it could be from any riding. So say, for instance, just because this picture was in the paper, you really had heard a lot about Sean Doyle in Tignish, and you really, really thought, here's a guy I want to see in there. You could vote for him if he was on here. he's not in your riding. And then, so with this graphic that we had on here, it would fare out that way that, say, the top 3 candidates. So, for instance, perhaps Herb Dickinson and Joe Byrne and myself for the NDP, if we all got the top amount of votes with the bottom half of the ballot, even though maybe none of us win in our riding, we would still go to the legislature to represent the voters who voted NDP across the island.
There you go. There you have it. So there's a. This one is based around transportation and environment. What are your party's plans to improve and invest in public transit infrastructure, recognizing that we are striving for a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions?
Sure. Well, first of all, our government has already announced that we're installing fast charge energy electric charging stations for
Yes.
cars and vehicles
Paula was telling me a little bit about them.
right across the province,
Okay.
strategic locations. Our government has already contributed towards purchasing an electric bus in the city of Charlottetown.
Okay.
And
Any plans for West Prince as far as transportation linking us to Summerside, or?
well, we're currently working with, I know my department has, the department that I'm minister of, Rural and Regional Development, has contributed to Transportation West.
Yes, some vehicles.
And we
every
want to
year.
make sure that we see that as a sustainable transportation system here in the western part of the province.
Very good. How do you think that government could help identify trades programs or new business technology that would address the skilled labor shortage in our region?
Well, there's first of all, I'm very proud of Holland College. It was our government that initiated that back in 2010, and I'm very proud of it today. And of course, I want to see it utilized to its full capacity.
Sorry, yes.
I've recently met, just before the election was called, I met with Sandy McDonald, who's the new president, and stressed to him the need that we continually review and make sure that we're getting adequate courses at the West Prince campus. And some of the programs that I mentioned that people have mentioned to me is the Human Skills Program, I think it is.
Okay, yes.
And that there's been an identified shortage of that.
All right.
But I've asked Sandy to review the West Prince campus as far as courses that are being offered there. And
I think they're leaning more towards.
I've been discussing this behind the scenes for a while. Excuse me. The need for a residence here in West Prince.
Yes, that's actually one of our questions here.
And I'd like to see a residence here because that's one of the motivating factors for a student to make their decision on whether they come to West Prince or
That's
not.
right.
They have to have a place to stay.
Retain our youth, or even attracting international students. Or mentoring opportunities. Your thoughts on that? Do you see is there a way that you could see government to work with the high schools in partnership or collaboration to get more students into these college programs? Or
Well, we did. We've initiated the transitional program.
Yes.
I was approached by the principal at West Isle, and she identified the need for that, and I took it back to my caucus, and we were able to initiate that actually partway through a school year.
Great program for grade 11 and 12, and they go out or they have guest speakers come in, kind of give them a little eye opener of different industries in the area.
Yes, and exactly, and it gives them a taste of what trade they might like to pursue as a career.
Definitely.
And we're also with Holland College. The great thing about Holland College is that it's very adaptable, and it can react quickly to the workforce needs in the area. An example of that might be Trout River. Like they help train welders there for Trout River.
Yes,
And
I agree.
that's a great asset to have in the community.
It certainly is. As far as, all right, so that takes us down to economic development. We have a new position I hear coming to Alberton, an economic development officer starting. So do you see any projects that you think that they'll be looking into in the future, or what types of things they might be?
Well, as you're probably well aware, I'm currently the Minister of Rural and Regional Development, and this is a passion of mine. And we've partnered with ACOA and done a study here in West Prince to identify some economic benefits. And we're in the process now of hiring that person to carry our vision forward.
Okay.
And I have some projects that I've been working on that I'd like to see continued on. There's been having meetings with a group that's interested in doing something in the Broomfield area that could be a possibility of 65 jobs if it materializes.
Okay.
I'd like to see Jack Cartier Provincial Park. There's lots of room for expansion there. It's full of capacity now. I'd like to see some expansion of the three-way sites there. Maybe some camping cabins in the woods there. I think there's lots of potential to make that a more viable operation. You might have seen on Facebook where I've been proposing developing the new in front of the new manor. I'd like to see a walking trail there and splash
Oh,
pad.
no, I didn't see that one. Okay.
I'd like to see a walking trail there and around the perimeter of the property and a splash pad for kids or some type of activity like that in the center, and maybe a small memorial garden. And I think it's that sort of development is also necessary along with economic development to make the community more attractive. And
It's nice to see that. So one of the last questions, if you would like to share, is on the MMP. And, would you like to just share your brief thoughts on MMP or how you will vote or how you advise the public to vote if they're unsure?
Sure, it's a question that I get asked quite a bit at the door. And if they ask for my opinion, I definitely give my opinion on it. But I would like people to make their own choice.
Yes.
But some people are not sure what's actually being asked of them. So
It's a little complex.
So at times, if they ask me to do that, I'll give them the explanation the way I perceive it.
Right.
And as far as my own personal vote, I'll definitely be voting no.
Okay.
And for the reasons, I think it would mean less representation for rural Prince Edward Island. I don't think that that's a good thing.
All right.
And I think it actually gives more influence to the parties, which I also don't think is a good thing.
You don't think that's a good thing?